Okay, guys, so let's talk about the MCU. A lot of people have been going around recently saying that the MCU's in shambles and that they fell off and that they're never gonna come back. And I think there's a conversation to be had about that. But I do think a lot of these people are being a little bit too harsh on it. And I think we need to talk about that because I don't think the MCU's in shambles. I think they fell off a little bit. And I don't even think they fell off that bad. I think they're just being a little bit less consistent. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't come back. And who knows, these next two Avengers movies could be better than Infinity War and Endgame. But we'll get a little bit more into that later on in the video. But for now, I just want to look at everything that MCU has ever put out from phases 1 to 5. And I think that will kind of give us a sense of the problem, which I'll just tell you guys now. I think the key problem is inconsistency. And that's basically what they've been doing for the last couple years since Endgame, in my opinion. Okay, so we're gonna put all these projects into 5 categories: horrible, bad, okay, good, and amazing. And obviously this is all just my opinion, and that's why I'm just saying what I think the problem is. Obviously you guys could have a whole separate opinion, and that's what I want you guys to tell me in the comments. What do you guys think about it? But I'm just telling you guys my opinion. So you can say whatever you want about me. It's really whatever, I don't care. So to start with phase 1, we have Iron Man. I think Iron Man is okay. The Incredible Hulk, I think, is bad. Iron Man 2 is bad. I think Thor is okay. I think Captain America the First Avenger is okay. I think the first Avengers movie is amazing. And then getting into phase 2, we start with Iron Man 3. I think Iron Man 3 is bad. I think Thor the Dark World is bad. Captain America the Winter Soldier I think is amazing. Guardians of the Galaxy I think is amazing. Age of Ultron is good. And Ant-Man is good. Okay, but going into phase 3 is when we really start to kick things up a little. And I think that was like the peak of the MCU. But other than that, the first 2 phases weren't perfect. They had a lot of hits and misses, and that's okay. But starting now, we're going to get a little more in depth and talk a little bit more about why I think these movies are whatever they are. Okay, so starting with Captain America Civil War, I think that was amazing because you have these characters divided and everybody was like on a side, and no matter what side you picked at the beginning of the movie, you could at least see the other side. You could see why they were fighting and see, like, neither one of them were right. Neither one of them were perfect. And I mean, I was on Team Captain America, and I left the movie still on Team Captain America, but I could see Iron Man's side, you know? Doctor Strange was good. It's very important to the MCU, but I don't think it was amazing. I don't care about the characters that much, but it's still a really good movie. Next up is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I used to really not care for this movie, but when Guardians 3 came out, I rewatched all the Guardians projects, and I realized this one really isn't that bad. I think it's the worst out of the 3 movies, but it's still, the other 2 are very good movies. So it being the worst isn't a bad thing. So I think Guardians 2 is good. Spider-Man Homecoming I think is amazing. I love the characters. The Vulture twist was amazing. Vulture's a great villain. And yeah. Okay, so next up we have Thor Ragnarok. And I think Thor Ragnarok is amazing. I love how they changed Thor for the better, and especially with the powers and stuff. They saw that the first 2 movies didn't really work well, and the MCU changed it, and I think that's something the MCU is actually pretty good at, acknowledging when they make a mistake. And that's why I think the MCU will be fine ultimately, because, for example, the first 2 Thor movies were hated by most fans, and then this one was loved by most fans. So that just shows they can make the right adjustments, and I think they will. Next up we have Black Panther, which I think is good. I think when I first saw it, I would say it's amazing. A couple more problems the more I rewatch it. I think it's a little long, but it's not like it doesn't destroy the movie, so I could easily hear you guys out if you guys want me to give it an amazing. But for the sake of the video, I'm gonna just give it a good. I do like Black Panther Wakanda Forever a lot though. Avengers Infinity War, we all know that's amazing. What they were able to do with all of those characters. It's honestly more impressive than Endgame. I think Endgame is better and I like Endgame more, but Endgame kind of managed to keep it to a low number of characters for the main part until the end, but Infinity War had everybody in there and they all got a lot of screen time, and they balanced that really well. Okay, Ant-Man and the Wasp is next, and I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is just okay. There's some good things in it, like we get to see Wasp, we get to see Giant Man again, but everything else is just kind of forgettable, and there's some good action scenes, but not a lot actually happens in the movie. Captain Marvel is next, and I think Captain Marvel's kind of bad. I don't hate it as much as a lot of other people do, but I just don't really care about her as a character in this movie. In the Marvels, I really like the Marvels actually. I think that's way overhated, and I think this one is too. I just think this one's a little bit worse. And I think that's okay, because if you think about it, you had Avengers Infinity War and you had Avengers Endgame put in between these two movies, which were the worst movies, and only two movies in phase 3 that were below good. And they were put between two amazing movies. And now we're going to go on to Endgame. You guys knew Endgame was going to be amazing. It's my favorite movie in MCU. It's probably my favorite movie of all time. I don't know if anything will ever top it, but we'll see. It was a perfect closure to the Infinity Saga, and it finished all of our favorite characters and all of their arcs beautifully, in my opinion. Spider-Man Far From Home is good. It's very similar to Homecoming. I just have more problems with this one than Homecoming, because a Spider-Man movie kind of has to be set in New York, but this one isn't. And then the Mysterio thing, I think the Vulture thing worked. I think the Mysterio thing worked too. It just worked a lot less good, in my opinion. And then Phase 4, WandaVision started Phase 4 off, and I think it was good at first, but overall I'm going to give it an okay, because I think the last couple episodes just weren't that good, and that's a big problem with the MCU shows, which we'll get into a little bit later. So I'm going to give it an okay. Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'll say it's good, because it was 6 episodes, and I think 4 out of those 6 were very good episodes. I think there was like 2 of them that I didn't love, and those ones, they still had like things that I liked in them, and the characters I liked, and I liked Captain America, getting a new Captain America, so I do think that was a pretty good show. Loki Season 1 and Season 2 are going to be split up. Season 1 I think was amazing. Definitely the best Disney Plus show, in my opinion. Black Widow I think was okay. Unnecessary, like most people would agree with, but I don't think it was like a horrible thing that they put out. And I don't think it brings down the MCU that much. It just like could have been used, it could have been made earlier, but that's like not really a problem. The problems I have are just different things. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings I think is amazing. I think nobody talks about that enough. And Shang-Chi is such a good character, and this movie came out in 2021 and we have not seen him yet, which we'll get more into that problem later. Eternals I think is super overhated. I think it's an okay movie, a lot going on and a lot of characters, but the action was great, and that's one of the main reasons we go to see Marvel movies. Hawkeye I think is good. I love Kate Bishop. I love Hawkeye. And I think Echo and Yelena and Kingpin, I think they were all pretty good in the show. And that's why I say the show was just overall good. No Way Home is of course amazing. And I think the thing about No Way Home is people who say that the MCU's in shambles, they say that No Way Home was the only good thing they've put out recently. And I think that's a lie. And I think that people try saying it's only good because Toby and Andrew were in it. I think that's like super disrespectful to No Way Home, because what they did for Tom Holland's Spider-Man was just awesome. And that's my favorite Spider-Man, so I love that movie. Moon Knight, I think, was good. I think it was great in those first 5 episodes, and then that 6th episode just moved it down. Multiverse of Madness was good. I think it did hurt the MCU though, and I think a lot of stuff in 2022 hurt the MCU. I think that's when the MCU really got like, okay, now this is a problem. Miss Marvel, I think, is okay. Episode 1, Episode 2, and Episode 6, I think, are great. That's when they just focus on like her being a superhero in the Marvel universe and her just New York. And then once they go out into like the other stuff, I kind of get lost in it, and I didn't love that. But I still think it was a pretty okay show. Thor: Love and Thunder, a lot of people are going to hate me for this one. I think Love and Thunder is good or amazing. I'll say good just because I think Love and Thunder, to me personally, is an amazing movie just because I like the characters and I felt like I was connected with the story more. But I think overall it's a good movie. And most people would bash me for saying that, but we could talk about that later. She-Hulk, I think, is okay. Some of the episodes are really good, and some of the episodes were just not good. Like the finale was not good. The Daredevil episode was great. The first couple episodes I think were pretty good. So yeah, I'm gonna give it an okay. Werewolf by Night, a lot of people like that. I didn't like it, I didn't dislike it. I'm just gonna say it was okay. Wakanda Forever was amazing, and I don't think anybody can say otherwise. I understand people saying they should have recast Chadwick Boseman, but I think with what they could have done, I think they did an amazing job, and I think it gets like no respect. The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, I think was pretty good, and I think what they did with Star-Lord and Mantis was actually really cool because it kind of tied into Guardians 3 too. So like now you cared even more about these characters if you didn't already, you know what I mean? Okay, going into Phase 5, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Quantumania was a big problem for Marvel. I think it was a pretty good movie. Besides like 2 things in the movie, just the Kang stuff, not him as a character, just what they decided to do with him, like having him lose to ants, which we'll talk about more later. And they showed us a lot of Kang, and they told us a lot about Kang. I think they did a lot more of like telling us than showing us. We got a couple flashbacks, but other than that, they didn't show us that Kang was a threat and that he was scary and that he was going to be the big bad of the Multiverse Saga. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is amazing. One of my favorite MCU movies, and James Gunn is a genius. And a lot of people tend to say that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and No Way Home are the really only good things that the MCU have made and put out since Endgame. And they say that that doesn't really count because James Gunn made Guardians 3 and he's leaving to go to DC. But I think a win is a win, right guys? Secret Invasion, I think, was bad. Honestly, I think those first 4 episodes were really good and I was like into it, but I think those last 2 were really stupid, and I think if you look at it, the last episode was the shortest episode, which I think makes 0 sense. Loki Season 2, I think was good. I really liked what they were doing. It didn't like, Loki Season 1 had something special about it. Loki Season 2, like, I was like expecting it to be like Season 1. So like, it didn't like come out and surprise me, but it's still like a pretty good show. And The Marvels, I don't care what anybody says, The Marvels is a good movie. The action in that is really good, and I think that the characters are really good. Some of the story things I didn't love, but if the MCU knows what they're doing with the story, which is obviously a debate right now because some people think they don't, I just have to kind of trust them, then I think I shouldn't really have a big problem with it. And I think Echo is pretty bad. Echo is very similar to Miss Marvel, where I think if it just did what it was marketed as like a grounded street level story, then it would have been way more successful and way more liked. But unfortunately, they didn't do that, and that's why I just think this show didn't really work for me. But obviously, this is all just my opinion, and the key takeaways from this are: one, the MCU's not as in shambles as people think, because a couple better decisions here and there, and people would be saying the MCU's like at the same level. A little bit drop off from Endgame, but like not a major drop off. So like if we look at things like Multiverse of Madness, Love and Thunder, and Wakanda Forever, these are the only 3 MCU movies that came out in 2022, and a lot of people didn't like them. And I think it's mainly because like the decisions they made. Multiverse of Madness didn't really like live up to the title, and it was more of like a Scarlet Witch movie than a Doctor Strange sequel. Love and Thunder had 2 like really good storylines from the comics, with Jane's Thor storyline and then the Gore the God Butcher storyline. And both are really good, and they could have worked good together, but in the movie they didn't really work great together because it was like 2 different tones, which I think a lot of people hate on it a bit too much, but I mean, I can understand why. But the big problem for me with Love and Thunder, Gore butchered one god in the whole entire movie. I really enjoyed the movie still, but I can realize and admit that that was a problem. And Love and Thunder probably had the most potential out of all of these, but for most people it was seen as the worst. Wakanda Forever decided to kill off T'Challa instead of recasting him, and I think that was the good decision and the right decision, letting Shuri take on the role. But a lot of people for some reason didn't like this, and a lot of people let that cloud their judgment of the whole entire movie, which I just think is not what they should be doing. I think Black Panther Wakanda Forever should be talked about way more, and I think they did like a really, really, really good job with what they were handed. They got screwed over big time, and they still made to me, one of the best MCU movies. And then, I know this wasn't 2022, but it was the beginning of 2023. Quantumania could have been a really good movie if they did some things differently. And then Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which was a really good movie. But those 5 movies could have been like Phase 3 level of stuff. Phase 3 had so many good movies back to back to back to back, and we could have got that in those 5 movie stretches, but unfortunately they didn't work out. But to Quantumania, the movie is like really interesting. It had like a good idea with Kang and stuff, and I love like everything until that. Even the final fight, I liked it just until Kang lost. I would have much rather him kill somebody in the Ant-Man family and then escape, and then we go into Kang Dynasty or whatever. I don't really know what would have happened next, but a lot of people don't realize that this movie, like a couple weeks before it was released, the movie got leaked. So they did rewrite stuff and change stuff, and that's why the ending feels so weird. Like, you can look this up. Like, there's been stuff that has been proven about this, and now they're like, Marvel's like super strict on spoilers and stuff, and they're like banning Reddits and stuff. So this is not just like a made up thing. This did happen, and that's why the movie feels so weird and like choppy at the ending, because that wasn't really supposed to happen. Still, I think we much rather would have had the leak and have the movie leak for us and just be good than them change the ending and do everything that they did with Kang, because this guy's supposed to be the next Thanos. And I know people have been saying like, yes, he lost the ants, and yeah, he did. And I get, they were like high, like they were futuristic ants and powerful ants and giant ants, but still, just having him lose the ants, how is he supposed to like fight against the Avengers? You know what I mean? And I guess you could say it's going to be a different variant, but he has the whole storyline with Janet and the whole reasoning to attack the Avengers and hate them. So I think they're going to keep this variant of him. And the number 2 problem, I think, if Marvel wants to keep making shows, they have to be better, and especially the endings. Like, so many of these shows started off great and then just had bad endings, and that kind of ruined it. And I'm literally talking about almost all of them. WandaVision, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, and Secret Invasion. That's 5, and there's 9 of them. Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Hawkeye were decent all the way through. And unfortunately, nobody really cared about Echo. Meaning the only outlier is Loki. And right now, that seems to be a fluke. In my opinion, I like Moon Knight and Loki. I'd say you went 2 for 9. Most people would say you went 1 for 9, which is just not going to work. The third thing is the MCU took time to get things going in phases 1 and 2. And the same thing kind of needs to be happening with phases 4 and 5. And I think people don't really understand that just because they see like the Infinity Saga as one thing and like one giant thing that was great, but there was like bad things along the way. And that's just like, you have the bad things, so then the good things are like way better. You have to learn from the mistakes. And I think Marvel is learning from their mistakes because they've had a lot of time, and Deadpool and Wolverine is the only movie that comes out this year. And people are saying, if this is bad, it's going to kill Marvel. I think if this is bad, Marvel's going to be in trouble. But I think you just have to like give them a chance, you know? Because there's still a possibility that this can all be saved. So the MCU is just a little bit less consistent right now, I feel like. Like we went from Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and then the next thing right after it was Secret Invasion. But I think there's a reason why things aren't looking good. A lot of people think it's because like we lost key characters like Iron Man and Captain America, and I can see that. And a lot of people are trying to figure out who their replacements need to be, but in my opinion, I think we don't really need to replace them. I understand that we don't have any main characters that like are really fan favorites right now. Like Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor and the Infinity Saga were like the big 3, and everybody loved them. But I think we have a lot of really good characters right now, and in the Infinity Saga, they kind of primarily focused on the big 3 and the original 6. But right now, we have so many good characters, and they can all have their own projects, and people will go see these projects if they're good. It's not the character problems, it's the story problems for me. We have Captain America, we still have Thor, we kind of have Jane Foster's Thor, we have Hulk, we have She-Hulk, we have Shang-Chi, we have Black Panther, we have Doctor Strange, we have Captain Marvel, we have Spider-Man, who's getting a whole nother trilogy, we have Ant-Man and Wasp, we have Moon Knight, and we have so many more. The characters haven't been the problem, it's mainly just been the writing. And I'm not blaming the writers because they need more time. But a quick little side note I'd like to add is that even though I really like some of these new characters that they've recently added, I do think that we need to see them more often so that we can build strong connections with them and care about them more. Like, if you look back at the Infinity Saga, the big 3, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, they almost all appeared at least once every 2 years during the Infinity Saga. But then if you look at somebody like one of my fan favorites that they introduced since Endgame is Shang-Chi. You haven't seen Shang-Chi since his movie, and I just don't think that's going to work. Doctor Strange only appeared twice, and these are some of the characters that are going to be leading the new phase. Captain America, Falcon had more appearances in the Infinity Saga than Captain America had. So he takes on a bigger role, but he gets less screen time. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, think about it. We still have some amazing teams and characters coming. We have a new Avengers roster. The Young Avengers are coming. Fantastic Four are coming. The Midnight Suns. And then especially the X-Men. Whether these next 2 Avengers movies are going to be good or not, or better than Endgame and Infinity War, which is what they're going to be compared to, obviously. But whether better than them or not doesn't really mean anything for the future of the MCU. Of course, if it's not good, if it's really bad, then the MCU is going to be in a bit of trouble. But if it's not better than Infinity War and Endgame, the MCU can still be fine. Going forward past the Multiverse Saga, like I just said, these teams, they're going to be the main focus, and it's going to be a lot more fan favorite characters coming into the mix. And I think that's why we'll be fine ultimately. Whether this is better than the Infinity Saga or not, the MCU's not going to be dead, I don't think. Some of the most exciting projects going forward. We have Deadpool and Wolverine, which comes out in like 2 weeks. We have Daredevil Born Again, which is going to be a continuation of the Netflix show.
I'm Daredevil. Not even God can stop that now.
We have Captain America 4, which seems to be getting the new Avengers together. We have the Fantastic Four. We have Avengers 5, whatever they're going to do with that. And then we have Secret Wars. And those are only the announced things. We still have San Diego Comic-Con coming up in about 2 weeks also. So I think we're going to be in for a really good time in the next couple of months and years and so on. So there were the main problems. But what is the best way to get the MCU back on track? And I think the answer to that is honestly pretty simple. It's time to bring in the big names. They've been sidelined for a bit, and I think it's time that we have to bring them in, which I don't think is a bad thing. I can respect Marvel for trying new things and bringing in lesser known characters to try giving them like their center stage. But to some people that didn't work, and I think that's okay ultimately, because it was just, the MCU is built on testing things, seeing if they worked or not, and then pivoting, you know? And I think that's what we're doing right now.
Higher, further, faster, baby. Yes, babe.
But I think it is time to give the spotlight to the best characters. Marvel's big three before the MCU were Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Hulk. And luckily enough for them, it looks like we could continue on with those big three. We have a whole new trilogy of Spider-Man movies coming out, and the MCU are bringing their own X-Men movie. And for better or worse, the team's roster will likely have Wolverine on it. And for Hulk, I'm honestly not sure what to do with him. You can either try turning him into a better Hulk, like before Infinity War and Endgame, or you can maybe just replace that character from the big three. You can pivot to a character like Mr. Fantastic to get the Fantastic Four some representation in there, because then you could have Spider-Man for the Avengers, Wolverine for the X-Men, and then Mr. Fantastic for the Fantastic Four. I think that'd be a good idea. But yeah, these are really just my problems right now, and I think there are a lot of ways to solve these problems, and I think they ultimately will be solved. I still have a lot of hope for the MCU, and I think we're about to see some really good things in the coming months. I think a lot of these problems will be answered really in the next 2 weeks with Comic-Con, and I can't wait for that. But I think it's safe to say